Motivation disappears where there is no fear or necessity. Sometimes you just wake up and feel nothing. No desire, no interest, no meaning. Everything that used to ignite you no longer resonates. Even what seemed important has become empty. And you look at a world where everyone is running somewhere, proving something. But inside you, there is silence, resembling exhaustion. Not laziness, not apathy, but deep depletion. As if life has taken all your strength and there is nothing to replenish it with. You try to force yourself to pull it together. You switch on the usual phrases, I must, I have to, pull yourself together. But the body doesn't listen. The brain seems covered in a fog, thoughts scatter, and movements lose energy. You search for a reason but find none. And then shame appears. Shame for not wanting anything. Shame for not being the person you used to be. Shame for simply being tired. But the truth is, the lack of motivation is not laziness. It is a signal. It is the language of a nervous system that has been working without rest for too long. It is a way to survive when internal resources are at zero. The psyche shuts down energy to protect you from further depletion. This is not your fault. It is an automatic reaction of an organism that can no longer be in threat mode. The world is used to calling this burnout, but the word burnout sounds too superficial. In reality, it is the loss of connection with your inner fire. The fire hasn't disappeared. It is hidden beneath the ashes of constant tension, beneath the demands to be strong, productive, and needed, beneath the endless attempt to meet external expectations. You can carry work, family, and responsibilities on your shoulders for years, doing everything correctly but gradually fading inside. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped listening to what is truly yours. Motivation dies where life turns into an endless must, where every goal is a foreign voice and every action is a way to earn existence. When a person lives in constant stress, their body stops producing the energy of joy. The system switches to survival. In this mode, safety, not inspiration, becomes the priority. No amount of willpower can switch on motivation if the body does not feel safe. It closes access to energy because it believes, first, you must survive, and then you can live. And so, you live on autopilot. You perform routine actions but feel no response. This is the moment when the soul stops supporting a scenario it doesn't believe in. It no longer wants to participate in a race that has no meaning. And so, it takes away the energy, so that you finally stop. People are afraid of this stop. They are afraid of the emptiness that comes with it. But it is precisely in this emptiness that a chance appears to hear yourself. Your motivation is not dead. It is waiting for you to stop running after foreign goals, until you stop forcing yourself to be who you never were, until you stop fighting your own exhaustion. Motivation does not disappear forever. It simply stops supporting a lie. When you live out of sync with your own rhythm for too long, doing things not out of interest but out of fear, the inner fire goes out. And no matter how many self-help books you read or motivational speeches you listen to, nothing will change until you admit that you are tired of not being yourself. The paradox is that true energy appears not when you force yourself to act, but when you stop doing what destroys you. When you start listening to your body, not your calendar. When you allow yourself to be slow. When you stop chasing the idea of must be better. The lack of motivation is not a failure. It is a pause that life sets to give you back your breath. It is an internal repair that happens without your consent, but for your benefit. Everything that seems like emptiness is actually a space where meaning is reborn. You cannot return to motivation as the person you were before. Because the person you were is tired to the core. The old sources of energy no longer work. Where there was once fear and the desire to prove, honesty must now appear. Honesty is the first step to true strength. When you admit you can no longer run, peace begins to awaken within. Motivation is not a stimulus, not a reward, not a technique. It is a natural state when a person is in contact with their life, when actions are born not out of fear, but out of meaning. When you don't need to force yourself because there is movement within. It is not a flash or inspiration. It is a quiet fire that burns without noise but illuminates the path. You haven't lost motivation. You have simply exited the old cycle. And now, everything that requires effort, everything that was previously supported by fear, is falling apart. This is not the end. It is a transition. Motivation will return, but not in its former shape. Not as a race, but as a quiet strength. Not as euphoria, but as clarity. Not as a burst, but as a flow. For now, the wisest thing you can do is not to look for it. Just be close to yourself. Be with this fatigue, this silence, this lack of meaning. This is the beginning of a new life, when everything unnecessary burns out and what is real remains. Motivation disappears not because you became weak, but because you lived on external sources of energy for too long. When you feed yourself with external stimuli, likes, praise, expectation of results, the psyche gradually loses contact with internal fuel. The body gets tired because every day it has to make an effort to be up to standard. But external motivation always ends, and then emptiness remains. You are looking for a new source of inspiration, new goals, a new reason to get up in the morning. But everything that used to work no longer does. And this causes panic. It seems as if you have lost the will to live. In fact, you haven't. The old system has simply stopped supporting you because it was built on fear. Fear of not being, not making it, not being liked. External stimuli are crutches that break when there are too many of them. They create dependency. Every time you achieve a goal, the brain releases a burst of dopamine, and then there is a crash. And to feel alive again, you look for a new reason, bigger, brighter, faster. This is how the dopamine loop is formed, in which motivation turns into a drug. But any drug has a side effect, exhaustion. You can live in this rhythm for years without even noticing how you are losing yourself. Success stops bringing joy because every new result seems insufficient. The joy of achievement lasts seconds, and then anxiety returns. This is the dopamine reset. The body doesn't have time to recover because it is constantly being forced to want. Stop spurring yourself on. Don't look for new stimuli. Freeze and feel what happens when you don't force anything. Yes, anxiety will appear. Yes, the fear of remaining motionless will rise inside. But it is through this pause that you regain sensitivity. Motivation does not live in noise. It is born in silence. When you stop chasing external rewards, at first it seems like the world has stopped. Nothing inspires, nothing brings joy, but gradually something else begins to break through this layer of apathy. A simple, pure desire to be. Not to do, not to achieve, not to justify, but simply to be. This is the beginning of internal motivation. Do less, but consciously. Don't start the day with plans, start with breathing. Look at your hands, feel the ground beneath your feet. Feel that you are here. Energy is born from this feeling. It is not as bright as the adrenaline of success, but it is real. The culture of achievement has taught us that movement is the only way to be valuable. But life does not have to be constant progress. Sometimes stopping is the only way forward. True motivation is not connected with goals, it is connected with direction. And if you stop feeling direction, it's time not to run, but to listen. Remove comparison. Every time you catch yourself thinking, others have more, faster, better, just say, that is their path. Bring your attention back to yourself. Comparison devalues the internal rhythm, and motivation only lives where there is respect for your own pace. When you stop forcing, a softness appears in the body. This softness is not weakness, but restoration. It allows the nervous system to trust again. When constant pressure disappears, the body returns energy. You are no longer burning, but shining. Don't look for inspiration. Create a space where it has room to come. Remove unnecessary noise from your life, unnecessary conversations, news, other people's expectations. Silence is frightening, but it is the source of new breath. When irritants disappear, the inner voice becomes audible again. External motivation is always temporary. Internal motivation is eternal. It does not depend on applause. It grows from meaning. When you stop playing the race and start asking yourself, "Why am I doing this?" clarity appears. Clarity is the fuel. There is no drama in it, but there is life. Every evening ask yourself not, "What did I do?" but "What revived me today?" Do not evaluate the day by the result. Evaluate it by the moment where you felt alive. Even if it was a second, that is already the beginning of a return. Burnout does not start suddenly. It creeps slowly, imperceptibly, while you are still convinced that you are just a little tired. First, joy disappears. Then, interest. Then you wake up and feel that every little thing irritates you. The world loses its colors. Everything becomes the same, flat, as if someone has muted the sound of life. This is not laziness or apathy. It is exhaustion, internal, deep, bodily. When you live in a constant race, the nervous system stops distinguishing between day and night. It stops understanding where rest is and where anxiety is. Even in sleep, you continue to run. And one day, the body simply switches off the energy. This is not punishment. It is a signal. You can't go on. The psychology of exhaustion is simple. For too long, you have been in must mode. Too often, you have stepped over yourself. Too rarely, you have asked what all of this is for. The psyche cannot withstand constant violence. It begins to defend itself, turning fatigue into indifference. This is not a defeat. It is an attempt to survive. Stop treating burnout with motivation. Don't look for ways to cheer up. Rest for real. Not through entertainment, but through silence, sleep, walks, slow breathing, the absence of goals for at least a day. The body knows how to return energy if you don't interfere. Motivation does not return to a tired body. It is born where there is peace. But peace is scary, because there is no familiar tension in it. Without tension, it seems as if life has stopped. In fact, that is precisely where it begins. The hero archetype lives in everyone, the one who must, who goes, who endures. But this archetype is exhausting if it is not balanced with care. When all attention is focused on achievement, a desert grows inside. The hero burns the ground he walks on, and then wonders why nothing grows. Learn to stop before you collapse. Make pauses not as a luxury, but as a discipline. Plan rest as consciously as tasks. A hero without rest turns into a shadow, strong but dead. The inner critic is the main source of exhaustion. It says that you can do more, that you must be better, that you have no right to weakness. But behind this demandingness is fear. Fear of being rejected, unrecognized, unnecessary. As long as this voice rules, you will not be able to feel alive. Because aliveness is born not from pressure, but from softness. When "you are not enough" sounds inside, don't argue. Just ask yourself, where did I first hear this? Whose voice is it? Maybe it's not yours. Maybe it's a memory of those who demanded you be perfect. Notice it and let it go. The lack of meaning does not come from nowhere. It appears when all attention goes to control. When life turns into an endless task of holding on, then even a beloved activity becomes a prison. The psyche cannot live without meaning, so it switches off the desire. so that you finally notice that you are living not for, but in spite of. Stop looking for meaning externally. It is not in work, not in recognition, not in success. It is in the feeling of connection with life. Do what returns the taste for reality to you. The smell of coffee, the morning light, warm water on your skin. These simple things reboot the system faster than any goals. Sometimes, to regain motivation, you need to stop being useful. You need to allow yourself to be. Without functions, without expectations, without utility. This is scary, but that is where the soul returns. Because the soul does not work under pressure. It needs space, not a plan. Live at least one day a week without a goal. Not productively, not rationally, not efficiently. Just live. Without excuses. Without reports. This is not a waste of time. It is the restoration of presence. The psychology of exhaustion is not about weakness. It is about the unheard cry of a body that has carried everything on itself for too long. When you start hearing this cry, healing begins. Don't make it a problem, make it a pause. Your energy will return, but only if you stop squeezing it out. When old meanings die, a person first feels emptiness. Everything that used to inspire ceases to matter. Words that once seemed important lose weight. Every action seems to lose its taste. And then fear arises. Fear that nothing will ever ignite again. But there is hidden wisdom in this emptiness. It comes not to destroy you, but to cleanse. Life does not tolerate falsehood. If motivation was built on fear, on an attempt to prove, on the desire to be needed, it must die. Because this energy does not live long. It is like an artificial fire, bright but cold. When it goes out, darkness remains, and it seems that everything is lost. In fact, this is where the truth begins. Emptiness is not the enemy. It is a transition. It is the space where the old consciousness dissolves and the new one has not yet been born. It is painful because familiar supports disappear. But it is in this pain that honesty is born. Without it, a new breath is impossible. Do not run away from the emptiness. Stay with it. Do not try to immediately fix something, plan, or get inspired. Just breathe. Notice that under the anxiety, peace lives. Peace that does not depend on success, praise, or speed. This is your reset point. Old beliefs crumble slowly. First, you lose interest, then faith, then direction. And that is right, because everything that is not yours must go. Jung called this process the death of the ego. At the moment when the old personality collapses, the authentic I is born. Not the one that strives, but the one that feels. Stop telling yourself that you need to find meaning. Meaning is not sought, it unfolds when you stop grasping. Instead of asking why, try to feel what is still alive inside. Maybe it is light breathing, interest in music, in silence, in the smell of rain. A new vector is born from this. A world built on constant must collapses when a person first says, I can't. This is not weakness, it is maturity. Because admitting your inability means exiting the illusion of omnipotence. From this moment, you stop living by inertia. And for the first time, you start living honestly. Allow yourself to be useless. Do what does not lead to a result. Walk without a goal, look out the window, listen to the silence. This is not a waste of time, it is the return of connection with yourself. Everything real is born in uselessness. When meaning dies, cleansing begins. All foreign goals, foreign voices, foreign rules disappear. Only you remain. And this encounter can be frightening because there are no costumes or roles there. But that is where what does not die lives. A quiet inner presence that does not need proof. Write down everything you feel, even if it is chaos. Not for analysis, but to bring it out. When inner chaos takes the form of words, it stops destroying. It becomes material for a new life, Honesty is not admitting mistakes. It is returning your gaze to what you did not want to see for a long time, to pain, to fatigue, to the fear of being nobody. But in this gaze there is liberation, because you stop being dependent on old motives. Do not force yourself to believe in the new. Just watch as life returns interest to you. It comes not as a flash, but as a quiet warmth. Barely noticeable at first, do not rush to make a plan out of it. Just warm yourself next to it. And then, out of the emptiness, a new life rises, not the old motivation. It does not require effort because it comes from the truth. It does not call for feats because it respects peace. It does not strive for success because it already is. This is the moment when meaning ceases to be an idea. It becomes breath. To return to yourself, you need not to look for new motivation, but to restore connection with your body. The brain can invent thousands of reasons, but the body always tells the truth. If it doesn't want to, it means there is no resource. Listen to it, not to the plans. The body does not lie. When it is tense, it means you are living out of your own rhythm. When it is tired, it means you have carried other people's tasks for too long. The path to action begins not with thoughts, but with breathing. Take a deeper breath than usual and allow yourself not to rush. True motivation returns through simple movements. Do not try to immediately reach the peaks. Start with a step that does not cause resistance. Do what is slightly easier than must. When energy returns, the steps will become natural. The amount of actions is not important, but the presence in them is. Let every movement be conscious. Then the strength that you lost for years will begin to return. Many try to treat burnout with discipline, but discipline without self-love turns into a whip. True will is not about violence, it is about care. Do what nourishes, not what depletes. Even if it's just a cup of coffee, a walk, a short nap. Small rituals return a sense of control, but without tension. If you want to regain the desire to live, stop waiting for inspiration. Do what creates the conditions for inspiration. Tidy up your surroundings, remove unnecessary noise. Create a space where the soul has room to return. Life is like a river. It does not flow in chaos. Give it a channel, and the flow will go again. Find one action that brings you at least a small spark of aliveness, and do it without expectations. It can be reading, drawing, sports, cleaning the house. It doesn't matter what. It is important that it is not an obligation. This way, you restore the connection with yourself, step by step, not by violence, but by attention. Motivation appears not from willpower, but from meaning. When you feel that you are doing something real, the body itself gives energy. Therefore, stop doing what is emptying you. Give up the goals that no longer resonate within. Let only those remain that have a response. Action is born from this response. The path to motivation lies through respect for rhythm. Do not demand speed from yourself. Even a day of silence can return more energy than a week of effort. When you don't rush life, it begins to breathe in you, and then movement becomes natural again. When you stop waiting for motivation to return as a flash and simply start breathing with life, it returns on its own, not in the form of an energy explosion, but as a quiet, confident presence. It no longer demands inspiration because it turns into natural movement. There is no longer a struggle inside, only a rhythm in which you feel alive again. True motivation is not like a high. It is peace in which there is strength, when you no longer force yourself, but still go. When you do things without euphoria, but with inner consent. It is not a burst of adrenaline, but a steady current. You simply live, and life itself guides you. Now you see that motivation was never the problem. The problem was the pressure, fear, expectation, the constant attempt to prove to yourself and others that you are capable. When that disappears, A pure desire to be remains, and actions are born from this desire. They are not for the sake of the result, they are for the sake of the process itself. The world will still demand speed, but now you are not obliged to obey, because you know your rhythm is not slowness, but maturity. You know how to hear when to go and when to stand still. This is freedom, to be in motion without losing peace. Now, when you look at life, there is no former rush in it. Even if the tasks remain, your attitude towards them has changed. You act not out of fear, but out of choice. And this choice makes you strong. Motivation becomes not fuel, but a companion. Quiet, reliable, constant. Peace is not inaction. It is a state where everything has its time. When you believe that everything will come when it needs to, the internal noise disappears. And in this calmness, you begin to notice how much is alive around you. People who feel the same way, things that give warmth, little things that restore meaning. Now you don't wait for life to light up again. You yourself become that light. Without flame, without fanfare, without promises. Just a quiet inner fire that does not go out. This is mature motivation. If these words resonate, write in the comments, "I no longer force myself." Let this be your point of return, not to the former fire, but to yourself, because everything else is a consequence. Tomorrow you will encounter a sign that confirms you are on the right path.